Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming today. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's grown. It's 34 years in the industry. I've been since I was 16, which is pretty scary when you put a number to it, actually. But the interesting thing is I probably didn't really figure out the industry till the last 10 years, so I was a bit of a slow learner. I saw the blurb saying Randy Zupanski shares secrets of the industry. And I thought, wow, that's really intimidating. And there's not a whole lot of secrets out there. I certainly don't have them. But over the years, I've been very fortunate to work for some great mentors that have taught me a lot. And what I want to talk about today is really the fundamentals of our business. And over time, they really have never changed. They may be more challenging to work with because of the different technologies available and everything else. But the fundamentals are still there. Let's get this right. Oh, there we go. So hospitality fundamentals, and I think if you look at it, relationships, right? We talk about it. It's harder to live relationships in today's world with email, the speed of things that take place, and you almost have to be strategic in spending time on relationships. And when I'm talking about relationships, I'm talking about relationships with our suppliers, relationships with our colleagues, and obviously, most important, our guests. And technology drives you back into the office, and especially in the management level, we find ourselves having to respond to emails. Everything is about instant. So you have to be strategic and create times where you're going to meet clients. And I'll give you a couple different examples. A corporate hotel, generally your customer is there between 7 and 9 in the morning and between 5 and 7 at night, and they're in the rooms after that. And if you're a manager that's working 9 to 5, you're never going to see your customers. All right, it's just not going to happen. So you have to be strategic, making sure you're visible at the right times of the day so that you can have contact with your customers and create opportunities. Like in our case, we do a guest cocktail every Wednesday night, which is a great opportunity for me, not only to have a glass of wine, but to meet some customers and get some feedback on the property. The other, communication. And communication, it's always such a simple thing, and everybody talks how important communication is. If you think about it, in today, a lot of hotels have abandoned the standard communication that we used to have in hotels. And a good reason is simply the cost. Right? When you look at the cost of communication, we have a mandatory general meeting, and with 400 colleagues, it costs over $20,000 just to have that meeting. And if you think about departmental meetings every month, and you have mandatory departmental meetings and all the different meetings, we probably spend well over $500,000 a year just in meetings. So when the economy shrinks, the first thing that gets cut are these mandatory meetings. They become voluntary. Or you don't have as many of those meetings. Maybe it's twice a year. Maybe it's once a year. Maybe you just have spotlights where they come down whoever happens to be on shift. But then you lose the important part of that communication where you have a chance to build your culture, to celebrate successes, right? And to really ingrain what the hotel goals and objectives are. So if you look at some of the hotels that have, over the last couple of years, you'll see that they've probably shrunk on that. And when I say it's a fundamental, it's an essential fundamental. You have to make time for communication no matter what the cost is. Visible, assertive hospitality. This is a term I use. It's not a textbook term. I use it in the hotel all the time. And what I'm really referring to, and actually I'll give you a bit of background. When I worked in Hong Kong and in Shanghai, obviously the number of employees per head count per room is much higher there, where you're almost working 2 to 1 as opposed to here where we're 1 to 1 or maybe even less than 1 employee to the available rooms. But the one thing I always noticed is that there was employees in strategic positions throughout the hotel that were there to greet guests and offer the feeling of service. And in that case, I would say it wasn't better service, it was more service. But the whole concept of having people being visible and in the operations touching the guest, I think really left an impression on me. And when I came back from Asia and I worked in Calgary, one of the first things I tried to emulate was how do you do that with half the number of employees? And we started looking at areas strategically, and I'll give you an example. So at a front desk, You walk into a hotel, you look at a traditional front desk, you're going to see your guest service agents behind the front desk. There might not be a guest there. They're going to kind of be fiddling on the computer. They're going to be doing room blocks or whatever the case may be. Why can't one of them just walk from behind the front desk and position themselves in the lobby to greet the guest? Right? To give directions to a meeting room, to give directions to a different facility, whatever the case may be. It doesn't change anything. But yet it's assertive because you're out there, you're looking for ways to touch the customer. Right? And that's what I use as a term, assertive. Another good example would be in a banquet room. You walk into a large banquet room, where do you see the banquet staff? They're always at the back of the room. They all have their napkin over their arm. They look very precise. But why can't they be at the front of the banquet room where the doors are, greeting customers when they're walking in? Right? Why can't one of the employees be at the top of the stairs directing people to the ballroom instead of waiting, right? And that's why I use the term assertive, right? You're reaching out for opportunities. Another example, and I know Martin, we talked about this conference, but the bellman. Perfect example. In the morning, where do you see the bellman? They're always at the bell desk by the front desk. Why can't one of them be at the elevator, right? Where a lot of people don't call for help for luggage, but why can't somebody be positioned there to help somebody if they need help when they've brought it downstairs? Again, the offer of service, right? Or a room attendant that in the corridor, you're walking down the corridor in a hotel, and this is just a huge opportunity for greatness, okay? If you can get the room attendants to do this. But guest is walking down, the room attendant, you see the room attendant ahead, they duck into the room, right? They don't wait to see the guest, right? They duck into the room. All it takes is another 10 seconds for them to wait so they can say good afternoon, good morning, good evening, just to have that contact. And we talk about this at our hotel all the time, assertive hospitality, looking for opportunities to touch the customer and not waiting for the customer to come to us. Balanced scorecard. This is, I think, probably one of the most challenging things in our industry today. The ownership complexity of what we're dealing with, and every one of us has different ownership, and there's a huge emphasis, because of the type of ownership, on bottom line, profits, which is pretty common. I mean, profits are why we do the business, right? But if you look at it, it's REITs, it's pension funds, and their goals are not completely different. They're aligned, but not fully aligned with what, as a hotelier, what you're doing. And if you look at it, their interest is return on investment and appreciation of the asset. They're not, they know there's a customer there, they know there's a colleague there, they know there's a brand there, but that's not the important part of their piece. Their piece is the return on investment and the appreciation of that building. And if that goes up, they're a happy camper. However, as an operator, we become the gatekeeper. We're the gatekeeper of the balanced scorecard. We have to understand who the stakeholders are. So we understand that the stakeholder, one of them is the colleague, another is the guest, and another is the brand. And we have to find this balance as we work throughout the year on how we get there. And I say it's challenging, and that's why with these fundamentals, they're easy to give up. A manager can go into a hotel. Somebody could walk into my hotel, and I know they could improve the profit immediately, right? But would it be the long-term success? Would it be at the detriment of the colleague or the detriment of the guest? And trying to find that balance where everything goes up together is really the critical part. But going into it and understanding that, and then managing those different stakeholders is probably, Martin, would you say probably the most challenging part of our business today? Right? Yeah, absolutely. It's and so knowing that, and knowing that yourselves are coming into the industry, maybe you're not going to be dealing with all four stakeholders initially, but they're going to have a huge influence on your decisions on a day in and day out basis. How you manage your labor, what your service levels are, et cetera, et cetera. Even return on our capital. Capital is a big piece, how much money they're going to spend on your business. Differentiation. If you think back in our industry and where it is today, there's a huge emphasis on everything to be consistent, almost to the point where our industry became a commodity. And I use it like term like an apple. An apple's an apple's an apple, right? Well, some of our brands, no matter where you are in the world, that hotel looks the same no matter where it is. It has the same service levels, has the same feeling, same design in the room, possibly even the same uniforms. And this is what success meant for a long period of time. And one of the things that I'm really proud of being part of Fairmont is that Fairmont is authentically local. We attach to the communities that we're in and create experiences that relate to that. And one of the things that we did in the pre-opening, not just from a hotel standpoint, but we looked for every department in the hotel to create their own unique points of difference that the customers would attach to. And it's not just about the hotel, it's about the individual departments and the managers coming up with strategies on how they differentiate the product. And on a bigger scale, think about our brand. We have 3 Fairmonts in downtown Vancouver. Pretty difficult, right? If they all the same and they all do the same things and they all look and feel the same. We may have brand essentials that we all meet and a certain culture. However, I think you'd agree that if you walked into our hotel, it's a very unique experience that's much different than the waterfront. And if you walk into Hotel Vancouver, again, it's a very unique experience. It wasn't accidental. It was planned. Everything that we did in that hotel, right from the bell carts being silver, our name tags are silver versus gold, whatever the case, some of the smallest details were really to create a unique point of difference between our property and the others. Not to make it better, but to make it different. And it had to be different so that the guests, we didn't necessarily steal from our own, right? With a third hotel, the easy thing is to take business from the other 2 hotels, and then they're going to suffer. We had to find a brand, a product that actually complemented the other 2, but that also took business from the other guys. So we had our competitors are targeted, right? And that's where the business came from. And the great thing about this story is that before we opened in the market, the waterfront was number 1 in the market in RevPAR index, and the Hotel Vancouver was 3rd. So if we open and we take from them, they could go down and the other brands could move up. What ended up happening is at the end of 2010, we were number 1 in RevPAR index in Vancouver. The waterfront was number 2, and Hotel Vancouver was number 4. So the positioning did not change at all, right? There was a bumpy period at the beginning. And although we're related, we're cousins, so we fight a little bit. But once we figured that out, right, it all came together. But again, it was about creating differentiation between the products. And if you look what the trends are going today in the industry, and you see a lot of brands, our marketing people would say that a lot of brands are starting to copy us, is because they're focusing in on life experience also. And that's where a lot of the brands are changing. So we had it right, and I still believe it's a critical piece of why Fairmont's so successful. When you stay in Banff, you truly feel like you're in Banff, right? Or if you come to the Empress, who else has the Queen waving, right, on the royal wedding, right? Yeah, it was an impersonator, yeah, yeah, not the real Queen, yeah. So I think if you look at that and you take that into what you're going to do, and when you graduate, you think about the department you're in, how do you create your own unique points of difference in that department that support the goals of the business, that really make you stand out with the guest and the colleague? And then the last point, which I'm going to spend most of my time on, is colleague engagement. And let me just switch the slide here. There we go. Power of engagement. And the engagement, if you think about engagement, it's what the colleague feels like, looks like when you walk into a hotel. And you sense unengaged employees or that are completely non-engaged. But you probably don't notice the engaged ones unless they really stand out, right? But the idea is to have as many engaged colleagues as possible. Sounds pretty simple, right? And I think this is probably one of the hardest things to learn, right? How to motivate employees and engage employees in what you're trying to achieve. And this probably took me the longest to figure out. And I only ended up figuring it out by accident. So what does an engaged colleague look like? They're focused, right? They're enthusiastic, passionate, they're driven to a common goal, they're in the moment, right? You know when you're talking to them, you see it in their eyes, right? They're proud, they're confident, and they're not arrogant, right? And I use this term not arrogant because there's a sense that a lot of times when you walk into a luxury hotel, everybody's stiff and at attention, right? But today's market is more about casual elegance. People want to feel comfortable to walk into a luxury hotel in a pair of blue jeans or a black tie. So a lot of that has to do with the colleagues. How comfortable do you make them feel when they walk inside your hotel? So I always use it like it's funny, when you interview a colleague, you can, in the first, minute, there's this spark in their eyes that you see that they're there, right? Their intention, right? They're right on it. It's almost like they're excited, right? There's this internal excitement. And if you could just box it up and put that in every employee all the time, it's incredible. And I was interviewing some of our own colleagues for LDP, for our leadership development program. We're promoting a couple within. And we have this girl in in-room dining, and she came in and she was just shaking with excitement. And at the end of it, you're just going, wow, she should have my job, right? Because it was just amazing, right? And you sense that. So engaged colleagues, you see it. What are the benefits of an engaged colleague? Employee pride and ownership. Retention of your best employees. And why do I say that, retention of your best employees? Because when you have an environment where a large portion of your employees are disengaged, what happens to your best employees? They all leave. You know why? Because they're not in an environment where they can succeed, right? But if you have an environment of engaged colleagues, the good ones stay, and guess what happens to the C players, the ones that aren't engaged? They all leave. You know why they leave? Because they're not comfortable. Because everybody around them's achievers, and they just want a job, all right? So to make sure that you have that proper balance. Loyal customers, obviously. If you have great colleagues that are engaged, you're going to have loyal customers. Ultimately, a service-driven culture. So engaged colleagues understand that the customer is more important than they are. Initially, you always start with the engaged colleague. How you recruit them, how you retain them, how you train them, right? How do you motivate them? But when you have that group of individuals, it's so powerful that they understand that the customer is more important to them. So they'll compromise, they'll give things up, they'll work weekends, they'll work nights, they'll come in on their days off. Not that we encourage all those things, but they'll do it naturally because they understand the importance of that customer. Greater profitability. We have great service, we have great employees, we have greater profitability. Ownership trust. So this is critical to the success of any hotel and on any level. And you don't think about it a lot, but I do. I think about it all the time. Because you have to build this level of trust where they allow me to operate. If they don't trust what we're doing in the hotel level, if we're not making the profits we say we're going to make, and we're not delivering the service, and we have the wrong colleagues, they're going to micromanage the hotels. They're not going to give us the chance to operate. Because the owners are very involved in every single hotel today on a micro level. But they'll give you freedom if they trust you. Reinvestment of capital. Again, if the ownership has trust, they're going to put more capital into your building because they believe you'll use it wisely and they see a long-term future potential. And then obviously, if you do all those things, the brand's successful. Right? You notice all the stakeholders there? Right? They all are intertwined. So this is something that you've probably seen. This would be a textbook thing. I'm sure you've heard of it, the service profit chain. And I only put it up there. It's just because I think it just reinforces what we said. You start with engaged colleagues. You get exceptional, passionate service, fair return on investment for the owners, brand satisfaction, and guess what? You get greater engagement. And I say this snowballs because the better you do, the more engaged your colleagues do, the better the business does, and it continues to grow and grow and grow. So the more you invest on the engagement side at the beginning, the more you're going to get in the long term. And the more you continue to invest, the more you're going to get. It doesn't mean engagement or employee satisfaction. It doesn't mean it's like Disneyland. It's a happy place you go to work every day. It's a place where you're proud to be. It's a place that energizes you. It's hard work. Great hotels are hard work. They make it look easy, but it's extremely hard work. The details are hard work. Most hotels that don't put the detail in, Still looks the same, maybe you don't sense it, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes in a luxury hotel to get those details right. So probably, my most powerful moments of engagement, if I think about it, are the 4 hotels I've opened. Opening a hotel creates this sense of focus that's unachievable in any other situation. So imagine in a business, say you have 400 colleagues, and every single person is focused on one common goal, all trying to achieve it at the same time, putting everything else aside. And that's what opening a hotel is. You have to make an opening date. So everybody is working, they're all focused. They may have goals, other goals going on within that, but that one common goal is so powerful. And that's why people they call it opening junkies. I'm a bit of an opening junkie, right? Because you get addicted to that sense of, accomplishment and where everybody is focused like that. So my breakthrough moment, just was the Sheraton Eau Claire. It was 1998. It's when I came back from Asia. And I was opening that hotel. I was there about 8 months before. It was 377 suites. It's a new build, downtown Calgary, first one in 12 years. So there was a lot of pressure in the sense that you had to deliver right from the very beginning because there'd be a lot of attention paid to this building. The original owners were out of Halifax. It was a small company called Pacific Rim. And actually, I think 3 years after, or 3.5 years after we opened, we were purchased by Legacy, which was the real estate investment trust for Fairmont. And we became part of Fairmont, and we were the only non-Fairmont operated hotel by Fairmont. So you can imagine you're a Sheraton Suites, owned by Legacy, managed by Fairmont. All right? That was pretty early in the game to have all those different players, but it was exciting. So great hotel. And this is one of those right time, right place properties, kind of like the Pacific Rim. Incredible location. Product was surpassed everybody in town. Great service off the bat. Right? Just everything worked. And and the economy was picking up at that time. So we went through the opening. Similar stress to every opening, where the first few months, departments are not functioning properly and everybody's kind of fighting in between. But we did have exceptional business, our market share was strong, and our service was strong. And we went along, and I think about the 10th month we did our first, they called it a guest satisfaction survey, or employee satisfaction survey. Today it would be employee engagement survey. And when we did the employee satisfaction survey, our results were poor. And we looked at this and we're going, oh my gosh, how are we getting the service and we're getting the profitability? And so we couldn't figure out what was going wrong, but we knew that if we didn't fix it, it was only a matter of time till everything else would fall apart. So I hired a consultant, and I brought him in and we talked about it. So he in turn spent the next 45 days meeting with every single department. And he met with the colleagues, with the manager, without the manager, and he went through the process of saying, like, what's driving us forward, what's holding us back, and came up with these initiatives in each of these departments on what should be done. So he presented it to me after, and of course, we had 10 things driving us forward and 100 things that were holding us back. And then we talked to the leadership team, and we're all choked on this because we're thinking, wow, how are we ever going to recover from this? So we went away as a leadership team. We went away for 3 days, and we came up with 100 solutions. So the leadership team went away, we came up 100 different solutions, and we spent the next 8 months implementing those solutions. Came back, told the colleagues, don't worry, we're going to take care of these problems, we heard you, all right, we're going to make it all happen. So we implement them. I'd swear we implemented 99 out of 101 or whatever. It was close to almost everything. 2 things were not possible. And then we did the survey again. And what do you think happened? Our scores didn't go up at all. A matter of fact, we had 100 new problems. Okay? Right? Because you know what we did? We trained the colleague, right, that if they give us the problem, we're going to fix it. But we didn't train them to actually take an active role in the solution. And that's why I say it was my breakthrough moment. I thought I was solving everything, and in turn, I was just pushing it back. So what we did is we just took it to the next level. And we went away as a group of department heads, and we decided that what we're going to do is set up a hotel objective. This sounds pretty standard stuff in textbooks, and I'll explain how it just becomes a little better than standard. But we started off, we went away as a leadership team, we came up with our objective. We decided to be the #1 Sheraton in North America in guest satisfaction while exceeding expectations of our colleagues and our ownership. We said that's the ultimate objective of the hotel. So we all agreed on that. We felt it was achievable. It was a stretch, which it should be. Any objective that you set in any business should be a bit of a stretch. So we thought that was achievable. And then we set up 3 hotel goals. These are hotel-wide goals that we felt we needed to focus on. We wanted to achieve a hotel score of X for colleague satisfaction. Right? So in the survey, we wanted the next year to be at a certain target. We wanted to achieve a score of X for guest satisfaction. We knew that if we wanted to be the #1 Sheraton, we needed a score of 9.01 out of 10 to be #1 in North America. And then, of course, we wanted to achieve our budgeted gross operating profit. Right? 3 good goals, solid goals, all measurable. The colleague satisfaction is measured through the survey. The guest satisfaction is measured through an organization called J.D. Power through guest surveys. And GOP, we see the profit and loss statement every single month. We then developed, and not all of them were developed, some of them were already in place. We documented what the hotel strategies were to support these individually, the hotel-wide strategies. So an example for your colleague satisfaction could be competitive benefits. Right? Standard thing that you need in every hotel to survive, right, to keep people motivated. Could be mandatory monthly departmental meetings, things that were affected every single department. And we did that for each one of these 3 goals. Then what we did is we came back and we presented that to the team, the full team of the hotel, what the goals and strategy, or the goals and the hotel strategies were. And the first year we put a lot of emphasis on this. Then we challenged the department heads to meet with their teams, not just give them the goals and strategies, but to meet with their teams and set their own individual goals that support the hotel goals. So an example of that would be, imagine J.D. Power, one of the measurements, R is the ultimate guest satisfaction. J.D. Power has a question on there, speed of check-in or friendliness of check-in. So the front desk can set their own individual target for that. And then they were challenged, they spent time coming up with their own strategies on how they're going to improve their score to get to that level. And they did the same thing, and I think this is probably the most powerful part of this. They did the same thing for colleague engagement or colleague satisfaction. Each individual department put down their own strategies, all right, on how they're going to make it a great place to work for them. Right? So it wasn't about them giving me the list, and then we present it to the department heads, and then we go and fix it. It was about them coming up with the list, them coming up with solutions, and them implementing the solutions. So they truly owned it. So those days of the leadership dealing with it, right, were gone. It's all about, so when they would bring it to me, I'd say, well, what did you discuss in your department? Right? It became theirs to solve. And we empowered them to do it. And the amazing part was the simplest things were the issues. So in accounting, they wanted a plant or some artwork on the wall. Right? It wasn't that they needed all this more pay because we paid fairly. Right? It was simple things. Or if you're in the restaurants, back-to-back scheduling. They don't want back-to-back scheduling. Right? So it was fixing their schedules. It was doing a lot of simple things. There was a lot of low-hanging fruit that just immediately solved a lot of these problems that they were feeling and these stresses they were feeling. And the same thing came up with profitability. There was all these opportunities that they saw as a colleague that they could actually improve the profit or reduce the cost in their department. So now all of a sudden, not only do they take part in it, but they actually understand how they contribute. Because when you think about a room attendant position, a lot of times they don't know, they know they're there to clean rooms, right? But they don't know how they contribute to the ultimate goals of that business. Now all of a sudden they see how they're all attached. They see by clean room provides a satisfied guest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. right, or profitability, or their engagement. They understand how it all connects. So then what we did, so you just imagine the amount of hours this has taken already. So probably each department has spent 4 hours in total with their colleagues coming up with goals and strategies. We've done the leadership component. Then what we did, we had the departments choose their own representative, a colleague, plus a manager, and those two individuals, we all met for a full day where each department and their colleague presented the departmental goals and strategies, their departmental goals and strategies, to everybody else in the hotel, to all the other department heads and all their representatives. So what happened there was amazing, because all of a sudden now, you had room IRD and room dining listening to what was going on in the concierge department or guest services and how they were solving their problems. And they all started to figure out how they all connect. And as a new hotel, this was critical because that was one of our biggest problems, was that they weren't connecting. When they started to see this happening, then the ideas and the overflow of ideas between different departments, it was amazing. And then what happened from there, we did it twice more for the first year, because a lot of times what happens in our business, we do strategic plans, we do marketing plans, we spend a whole lot of energy on it, and what happens? They get put on the shelf. Right? So in this case, we made sure it didn't get put on the shelf. We reviewed it twice per year, again, spending a full day each time with all the departments, and what it did force was them to go back to their colleagues, review the strategies that they all agreed on, measure the success. In other words, if you're talking about guest satisfaction, where's our scores year to date? Are we achieving what we said we're going to do? Maybe we're not. So then they look at the strategies, and what do? They pull out the things that they're wasting time on that aren't working, and they put new ideas in place. So the benefit of this, they keep raising the bar. They don't become complacent. They don't keep wasting time and energy on things that don't work. They keep looking for new ideas that work. And then at the end of the year, guess what we did? We did it again, right? And that hotel did it again and again. And the benefits of this, let's just see what the results were. So the results of that hotel, year 3, and this is what continues today. I do the same thing in the existing hotel. So year 3 after opening, they were #1 hotel for guest satisfaction for all Sheratons in North America. And they held the title. They held it for 9 years. They lost it for the first time last year. So that's over 200 Sheraton hotels in North America. It was #1 in guest satisfaction. They led the city and continue to lead the city today in RevPAR index. At that time, the third year, we hit 140% index. We were #1 worldwide for guest satisfaction for all Sheraton hotels on the 5th year. On year 4, when we became part of Fairmont, the first year we led Fairmont on colleague satisfaction and continues to be in the top percentile today. I don't know if you remember Peter Watson, but one of our guys from corporate office, human resources, he warned us, it's going to be different than the surveys you've been taking. And by this time, we've built a lot of pride. The hotel's done well. We've hit our targets on where we wanted to be on colleague engagement or colleague satisfaction. So we had a bit of pride. And he's warning us, he said, don't expect a lot the first year. Right? And that was probably his biggest mistake. Because by challenging our team to not expect a lot, we drove even further. And we ended up leading Fairmont in the very first year. And the next year, it was funny, because after he read the results, he came and delivered them to us. And he goes, there's got to be a mistake here. They probably didn't understand some of the questions and so on. And he said, expect that next year you're going to go down. All right, because this is it's abnormal. We went up 2 more points. All right, it's because it was this type of team. It was an engaged group that was just engaged at achieving more every single year. And then the last one is the repeat of the top part. So it's changed a lot in today's world, where now they call it employee engagement, not employee satisfaction. We use an organization in our company called Gallup, and Gallup helps us narrow the gap on how we hire colleagues, but also enables us to measure in colleague engagement. And they focus in on 12 key principles, and They call it 12 Elements of the Working Life. And what used to be a survey of 100 questions is now reduced to really 12 critical questions. And if you look at these questions, they're pretty simple, but they're pretty well what all of us live by when we work in any job. I know what is expected of me at work, right? Important, right? You want to know what everybody expects of you. I have materials and equipment. I need to do my job right. At work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. In the last 7 days, I received recognition or praise for doing a good work. My supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. There is someone at work who encourages my development. At work, my opinions count. The mission or purpose of my company makes me feel my job's important. My associates or fellow employees are committed to doing quality work. I have a best friend at work. And that's a tricky one. I have a best friend at work. And we communicate that to our colleagues as saying that there's somebody there that really cares about you, somebody that you trust. It doesn't have to be your manager, but somebody you work with that you feel comfortable with. And pretty well everybody can identify with that. Best friend is a difficult question because everybody's visualizing somebody they went to school with and grew up with and so on. In the last 6 months, someone at work has talked to me about my progress. And in the last year, I've had the opportunities to work, learn, and grow. And the cool thing about this is, if you go back to the goals and strategies process that I showed you that we did years before, a lot of these questions get solved throughout that process. Right? So that one process can actually eliminate a lot of these question marks and engage your colleagues. I know what's expected of me at work. You have targets, you have goals, they understand. I have materials and equipment I need to do my job right. Well, if you didn't, that's what comes up when you're going through your strategies in your department. What equipment do we need? And I think if you go through these, probably I'd say 9 out of 12, right, get solved throughout that process. The recognition piece is the other part of it that's not generally solved through that. You get some recognition, but that has to be on a day in and day out basis. So I wanted to talk about the Fairmont Pacific Rim, and I think out of all the things I've done, I don't think I've ever had a more engaged group of colleagues. And the challenges of the Fairmont Pacific Rim opening this hotel were it was complicated. First of all, there was huge expectations on this product. The owner had huge expectations. It was part of a major development. There's 3 hotels in the city. We're going to be the 4th hotel. I have to get the highest rate. I can't take business from the other guys. There's all these complications that are attached to it. On top of that, we have to open in time for the Olympics. Right? There's a hard opening date. No matter what we do, we have to be open. We were supposed to open at the beginning of November. Well, as every opening goes, you never hit the initial date. But we still had to be open. As a matter of fact, there was points where we were sure we were not going to open. We had met with Van Ock to talk about what are the repercussions if we didn't open. They didn't have anywhere to put the rooms that were coming in our hotel. There was nowhere for them to go. And we weren't just opening to anybody. We had the board of directors for General Electric coming in. We had the coaches and management for Hockey Canada. We had Arnold Schwarzenegger, Richard Branson. We had the president of Russia coming. There was no way that this hotel could not open, right? And I remember talking to the media 2 weeks out, and I'm saying, oh yeah, there's no problem. They're going, Randy, I hear there's rumors that you might not make it. Oh no, we're okay. We're on track. We've got it figured out. We didn't have a permit until the day we opened. We did not, and the city bypassed a whole bunch of stuff because you know what? They couldn't afford for us not to open. We had to open. There was no more rooms. So we're going into this, and our colleagues are focused on this. They know the position we're in, but yet we can't get into the hotel. The kitchen's not open for them to cook in to practice. The bar's not open for them to practice on the bar. There's no service areas to practice in. The banquet rooms, we can't even do the training on the property because the construction's not there and there's no permit. So we rented a kitchen in the Culinary Institute for the chefs to start practicing. We rented a bar in the mornings so the service staff could practice making cocktails and going through those steps. We rented the meeting facilities at the waterfront and everywhere. We were all over town we were in the convention center, et cetera, so we could do our training. And literally, we did not get into the kitchens until 2 days before we had to open. You think about it, you're supposed to have weeks and months in a lot of these areas. But we had no choice. We had to open. And I can honestly say that our colleagues didn't even blink. Right? They knew what was happening. But remember when I said coming back to this goal where everybody is focused on one end goal? The power of that's just amazing and what people are willing to give up to achieve that. So the first day, when we opened with 65 rooms in the lobby lounge. Those rooms were full of deficiencies, right? The whole hotel was full of deficiencies because there was no time to punch the rooms beforehand because literally the furniture was going in, the linen was following, and the key system was being set, right? It was that fast. The second day, we had 105 rooms ready, including Fairmont Gold, which we had to have ready for the board of directors for General Electric. And just to give you a sense of complication, this board of directors is 17 members, but they have 70 support staff that come with them. They have their own vice president of food and beverage. When we did a site with them prior to opening, there was 22 of them, all right, supporting this board. So they were actually punching the rooms ahead of us because their board were staying in them. They became our punch experts, all right, on Fairmont Gold to get the rooms ready. They're pouring cups of coffee. They're checking everything, right? And I guess all their credit, they had to do that because we weren't ready, to be honest, at that point. The third day, we opened Jovenet, our bakery deli. Fourth day, we were up to 200 rooms. The Aru restaurant opened and the banquet kitchen opened. So fourth day opening, we'd been operating with the lobby lounge and then Jovenet, and now we're up to 2 rooms. Day 5, we got up to 335 rooms. So in one day, we're punching and opening up 135 rooms. This is, meanwhile, there's construction workers everywhere. So everything we clean is a puddle of dust behind us. So day 6, opening ceremony day, we're 100% occupied. And what do? They put the cauldron across the street from us. So not only are we going to be 100% occupied, but there's thousands of people now in our neighborhood walking in front of the hotel, through the hotel, using our bakery deli, going in our lounge. So we weren't just going to be 100% occupied. Now all of a sudden, we didn't know this was coming. Right? And I had a feeling the cauldron was here, but I had no idea what that meant in the sense of traffic. None of us did. I don't even think the convention center, because the weather was so nice that just so many people got out and walked. But the lobby bar was full from morning to night. Jovenet was doing 700-800 covers, lineups out the door. And this is all with a group of colleagues that have virtually just opened the doors, right? They haven't even practiced in a lot of cases. And I remember going into it, and we were saying, we're not going to hit it on the facility, right? The property's not going to be 100% ready. We're not going to be 100% ready. But we knew we hired great people. So it came down to them being engaged and using their instinct and putting hospitality first. So we said if they walk out of here and they have one thing that we want them to remember, it's about the incredible passion that we have for service. And believe it or not, we accomplished it. All right? And I think if you look at the group of people, we have a large portion of them still there today. It's over a year and a half later, or whatever the case may be. And that'll be their proudest moment. Right? And it's something that if they live in Vancouver for the rest of their lives, they'll always be talking about the day that they opened that hotel, because it was a tremendous feat to accomplish. Now, where is that hotel today? So we're just over a year later, and the hotel was #1 in Canada for colleague engagement for Fairmont. It was #1 in Canada for guest satisfaction and 4th worldwide. And we achieved 122% RevPAR index, all right, for the first year and led the city. So coming back to the engagement part, the day we opened the hotel, prior to opening, we did the leadership portion of where we set the hotel objective. And the hotel objective, actually, we haven't achieved because we want to be #1 in Fairmont for guest satisfaction worldwide. So we've still got a ways to go. But we set the hotel objectives, set the hotel goals, and then in March, after we got through the Olympics, we took it to the departmental level and set our own departmental goals and strategies. And we've already done it again. We're on our 2nd cycle. And the beauty about this is that when you hit the 3rd, the 4th cycle, and colleagues really believe what they say means something and that their contribution counts, the ownership level grows exponentially. It just continues to grow and grow and grow. And the more you invest in it, they become your culture keepers forever. So at the Eau Claire, I remember by the time I left, I was there for 7 years, that when a new colleague started, it wasn't about the leadership training that individual. The colleagues immediately took it on, and there wasn't pressure from the management to perform. It was from each of the colleagues. Do you know which hotel you're at? You're at the #1 hotel in North America. This is how we do things here. And that culture is still there today. They don't do the goals and strategies process. I mean, maybe they do. I don't think so. But it doesn't matter because the culture was built at the very beginning, and it's been allowed to continue to grow and grow. And today it's still there. It still lies there. I talk to people from that hotel today, and it's still there. So proud. I think they were second in North America last year. It was the first year they didn't hit it. So putting it in place and spending the time and energy truly pays off. So putting aside the emotional part, obviously I'm the emotional part, okay, and put it into some numbers. And I looked up some Gallup information, some research, and they talk about what engagement means from a number of different measurements. So engaged employees average 27% less absenteeism than those who are actively disengaged. Organizations with many disengaged colleagues experience 51% more turnover than those with many engaged colleagues. At the same time, the turnover is generally your best employees, as they will not stay in a disengaged environment. Organizations with an inordinately high number of disengaged workers lose 51% more of their inventory to shrinkage, theft, than those on the other end of the spectrum. More theft, more absenteeism. On average, those organizations with a high level of disengaged colleagues average 62% more accidents. Those organizations with a high level of engagement achieve 12% higher customer scores on average than those with low level of engagement. Those businesses in the top quartile of engagement versus those in the bottom level of engagement average 18% higher productivity and 12% higher profit. So that's the scientific part. That's what they measure. That's why they've convinced our company to really focus in on it. And I think if you look at all the things I'm presenting, one of the things that took me the longest part of my career to figure out was how to get there. It was probably the most important piece that I was missing, but it's how to try to get everybody focused on the same goals in your organization and understand how they contribute. So that's, how did I do time-wise? Oh, pretty good. So that's really all I have today. Are there any questions?
Randy, how do you equate your sharing of your financial success with your colleagues' engagement? How much of that financial success?
We share completely. Good and bad, good, bad, ugly. Yeah, right? Every month at the Spotlight or on the mandatory meetings, we update them on where we are in profitability versus the budget, et cetera. And you just can't throw it out there, as you know, right? But I always share the reasoning. So if you were a person who invested $200 million into this hotel, what would be a fair rate of return? And they're all kind of going like this, right? I mean, it's a lot of money. Right? And I said, you'd probably want $20 million. And I said, do you think we're going to hit $20 million? No, we're not. The owner could put his money somewhere else and make more money than he's making with us. He's investing in us in the long term. And then they get it. It's not about greed, it's about balance and understanding. All right. Any other questions? I don't know if that's good or bad. Go ahead.
You said at the Sheraton property that you came up with over 100 solutions to the problems that the colleagues had identified. What were some of the solutions?
It could have been simple things. Could have been scheduling, more communication. It could have been mandatory departmental meetings, right? There was a lot of things. But the interesting part, the other part of this was there's some things we couldn't solve. So we had these 30-foot high windows in the lobby that every morning between the hours of 7 and 9, the sun shone through, and the front desk agents at the end of the lobby couldn't see the computer screens. And this was their biggest frustration. So we looked at solar blinds. We looked at tinting these glass. I mean, it cost a fortune to put solar blinds, tinting the glass. And, we went on with this for 3 years. And finally, we just said, you know what, there's no solution. And they picked out some sunglasses to put on in the morning. All right? No, but sometimes it's just accepting the fact that there's some things that are bigger than us that we can't solve, that we got to get past. And in my hotel, I've got a perfect example today, is that we don't have a bus parking place. We don't like buses in our driveway because they block up the driveway, but we do have some bus business that comes through. The city won't give us a bus parking spot. So our guest service team was frustrated all summer trying to figure out how to manage this, right? And there is not one solution. Every day there's going to be a different solution, whether we pay a couple meters out so the bus can park there, or it's a slower day, we let them go into the driveway, or some days they go into Shaw. So we just went back and said, guys, get over it. There is no solution to this. We've tried everything. We're just going to have to manage on a day in and day out basis how we do those. And then now, you know what? It's not an issue anymore. It's off their list, right? Because it's just some things are bigger than what we can solve. Right? Any other? Yeah.
Do you think because of that, like the fact that you just got over it, now it's less likely that the city will eventually give you a spot if you ask for it?
No, they won't. I've tried. Yeah, not maybe in a couple of years, but to get the spots, they'd have to give up meters. And we could pay for those meters, but then the cost to buy out those meters it's just not worth it. Yeah.
I heard that you bought a collection of art from a well-known Vancouver artist and had it actually put in the rooms. Is that true, or?
No, it was photography. It was art. It was Bob Rennie. Bob Rennie owns a photography business, and he bought some photo art that we had reproduced and put into the guest rooms. And it's all based on local scenes,
Right.
Vancouver art. Yeah, it's great.
And some of the audience might not have been to your property, but can you talk about your decision to put TVs in your mirrors in your?
Oh, yeah. So when I got here, I was there a year and a half before. There was a lot of things that were designed in the rooms, but there wasn't really a lot of points of difference. And again, I'm going to come back to that points of difference, right? Trying to create points of difference in everything you do. Well, that was one of the things we came up with, was the mirrors, TVs in the mirrors in the bathroom. Now you see it more often, but when we opened, there wasn't a whole lot of hotels that had TVs in the mirrors. And if you look at our guest rooms, there's a number of these things that we put in at the last minute, managed to get into the design. And that's a great thing about our owner. He fully gets that part of it, that we have to differentiate the product. And he invested in that, and it was a huge pay. Now, I didn't win everything. There was a couple other things I wanted, but you can't have it all. All right?
The residents in the building, are those sold, all of them?
All of them were sold. So they have a separate entrance. They went for over $2,300 a square foot. If you think about that on real estate terms, I mean, it's just astronomical. And they're reselling at similar prices today. Fully occupied. The building's never fully occupied, though. Most of them are overseas investors. They stay for 3 months of the year. They will probably be busier in the summer than we are today. But they're all pretty well off, so they're traveling a lot. They probably have 3 or 4 places like this.
Is that something that Fairmont's looking to do for future development?
We do. Mixed-use development is pretty well part of every new opening, whether it be commercial or whether it be residential. And I think not just in our brand, in the industry as a whole. Otherwise, you couldn't afford to build a hotel and make it make sense. All right? In our case, the residential sold for $600 million. The hotel cost $200, the residential cost $200, the owner made $200 million, now, and he owns a hotel. Now it makes sense. Yeah. Not every project's like that. But that's a pretty unique project. It was again, it's one of those right time, right place. All the things came together, and maybe there's some costs I don't know about. Maybe he only made $150 million. I'm not sure. All right.
One other question.
Yeah.
Kind of just stupid, but when I stayed at the property, it was the only Fairmont property that I noticed that when I checked in, they had a front desk agent walk you to the elevator and give you like a little tour.
Right.
Is that standard, or is that just if they're not busy, or how do you?
No, it's standard.
Every guest.
Every guest gets walked to the elevator. So the idea of that is that, assertive hospitality. It's to introduce the product. It's to create a unique point of difference for our check-in versus the other check-ins that you're going to experience. And there's a lot of guests we walk right up to the rooms too, but minimum is to the elevators.
So, as you can see that most of us is going to work internationally. So, I just want to know, can you tell us something about like management style in Asia?
Yeah. I went through a huge transition. When I went to Hong Kong, it was 1993, it was or 92, 91 actually, and I went there at the end of 91, sorry, it's hard to keep track anymore. But if you imagine Toronto or Canada was in a deep recession at that time, the citywide occupancy was like 50%, the average rate was like $75. I went to Hong Kong and it was a $200 US rate. The occupancies were 90%. I was at an airport property, we were doing 103%, including day rooms. It was absolutely the opposite end of the scale. And the culture was completely different. There, I would say, we're very much direct in how we communicate, and the management style there is very much indirect, where there's not as much confrontation on issues. It's dealt through indirect communication. It's the same outcome, but sometimes takes a little longer, but has a place in certain situations. But I'd say that's one of the biggest things. Other thing was to learn about dealing with decision making, about losing face, and will one individual make a decision, or do they need to make decisions as a group because it's a better situation. So understanding those type of things was very challenging, and I went through 2 years of trying to figure it out. And then by the time I got to China, I almost had it figured out. Yeah. Yeah. But different, much different.
Does Pacific Rim offer butler service?
We do. I was talking about that earlier. Butler service in North America it's questionable. The North Americans aren't comfortable with butler service as a rule. It's a bit uncomfortable, I guess, when somebody's unpacking your luggage or somebody's coming in your room in the morning and tapping you on the shoulder saying, wake up, and with your tea. And we would consider that somewhat intrusive. And if you look at, we have it in the plaza, we have it in our property. Traditional butler service in North America doesn't get used a whole lot. However, what we've done is try to make it more of an advanced concierge, where it's all about creating the right experience and efficiency. Because I think North Americans are more about efficiency than anything else, so make my life easy when I travel. So does that mean car service at the airport? Does it mean car service at the hotel so I can get to my appointments on time? Pressing of clothes when I arrive? Those type of things that make me more efficient. And that seems to be more embraced. On our international properties, traditional butler service is much more embraced. In the Middle East and Asia, the customer knows what it is and is comfortable with it.
I was at your property on the Friday night. The lobby lounge was raucous, rocking, and happening for sure.
Every Friday.
Every Friday. So I was just wondering whether that is something that's embraced by all the guests. And I picture somebody checking in, for instance, at 10 o'clock at night after a long day.
Yeah, that's the beauty of 3 properties. No, I'm serious, right? Is I don't have to be everything to everybody. Right? I can focus in on one specific clientele. And there are a number of customers that tried us once and said, oh, I like the lounge in the waterfront or the hotel in Vancouver. It's much more quiet, etc. But then there's a portion of the customers that come and go, this is the place for me. And that's what I have to accept. I can't try to be everything to everybody. If I do, I fail. Or we just become one big melting pot and we hurt each other.
I understand your colleague engagement scores are really high, but do you find any areas of colleague engagement that are challenging still?
Recognition.
Recognition.
Recognition is a never-ending journey. Yeah, it is the most challenging area because you think you're recognizing, you think you're doing it, but the lowest score that you'll get is recognition. All right, I think we have to wrap it up. Yeah.